Hello everyone, it's Sonia McDonald here, and I am interviewing today. You know that I'm really passionate about building a world of kind and courageous leaders and leadership. And today I am speaking with one of our favourite leaders, Faith. Now, she is the CEO and founder of SixPivot. And I have worked with Faith and I've worked with her incredible team. They do amazing work. She's also a judge in our Outstanding Leadership Awards. So I remember when we, started to organise the Leadership Awards and we started thinking about great people out there, great leaders who could be our judges. Faith was at the top of our list because we love everything she espouses. She's definitely the most courageous and one of the kindest people we've ever met. You are. And I work with her team, our wonderful team, and they do great work. So welcome to the Leadership Channel.
Thanks, Sonia. I'm really happy to be here. And such lovely words. So thank you.
Well, it takes one to know one. So tell me, what's going on for you at the moment? Tell me how you're navigating this time. How are you finding your role as a leader and a CEO at SixPivot? I mean, tell us around what's going on for you.
Well, I did move in the middle of COVID. So I left Brisbane and I moved to the Gold Coast. So I don't recommend that in the middle of COVID. But it's meant that I've got to enjoy some very quiet beaches, which I'm not looking forward to the crowds coming back to, I've got to say. So that's been nice. But of course we do need people back and fostering the economy. So I'll share the beaches with them when they come back. But outside of that, I guess as a team for us, we were always remote first, as much as I don't overly like that term. But so for me, I've built the company based on people being able to work from wherever they work best, is what I like to say. So if that's at home, if it's at the beach, if it's at a cafe, if it's on the client site, wherever it is that the team can really do that. So for us, that move that, a lot of people have kind of gone through, well, how do I now manage remote teams and how do I set everybody up to work from home? We didn't really have that because our team was already predominantly doing that. And we'd spent a lot of time over the last 5 years educating our customers with the way we work as well. So they were pretty attuned to how we work. We're very outcomes driven rather than what time you get in the morning and what time you leave. So that side of things for us, COVID has been not too much of a disruption. However, it did change the way we did things, and we've learned a few things along the way that we thought we should try because everyone else was doing it. So, everyone's giving tips on, if you're working from home, you should do this and you should do that. And so one was like doing more face-to-face video calls, which we never used to do at all, and doing like social Zoom drinks on a Friday, which we didn't even do normal social drinks. I'm like, why are we changing to do Zoom drinks on a Friday? So that lasted, about 3 weeks. And then, we decided really that wasn't our culture and that's not what we wanted to do. So it's been quite interesting because despite being a remote first company, we kind of felt this compulsion to try these different things, which I think has been good, that everyone's kind of said, if you really want to keep your team together, you should do this. And we just found that that's not who we are, and it wasn't who we'd been for 5 years. So why we thought we needed to change something that was working, I don't know. But, it's good because we gave it a go, and we very much, I think, continued to cement our culture more and not necessarily listen to, what everybody else is saying, that you should do. And it really does reinforce finding the thing that works for you and your team. So from that perspective, we learned a few things, we changed a few things, but also went back to the core of, who we were and what worked for us. So that's been good. And then with our customers, Look, we've had customers that have gone through ups and downs as well. So we've had some customers that have remained on the journey and continued to innovate. And then obviously we've had customers that haven't been able to do that, and they've either put projects on hold or they've had to stop projects altogether. So, so I think like everyone, from a customer perspective, it's not been easy, but we were certainly set up to handle it much better than a lot of other organisations like ourselves.
So what would be some tips, other than the fact, I love the fact that you've tried these things and you've kind of reverted back to what you were doing anyway, which, I think that's great to branch out and look at different ways of working. But, obviously, you've been doing it now for a long time. What would you say to people that are new to this, that are kind of going, gosh, this is the new way of leading remotely? Yeah.
Look, one thing that we did change, and I would recommend leaders do more of, and it doesn't matter whether you're leading the whole company or you're just leading your team, is we, I guess, amped up our communication with our team. So particularly during that sort of first real phase of COVID, when, everything's changing for everyone. So even though we had a set way of working and we knew our day-to-day jobs, if you like, obviously COVID affected everybody personally in different ways, and you can't account for how people are going to react. And even though my team were probably most set up more so than others to do it, it still, of course, was impacting them in terms of what was going on around them. They had spouses now or partners now working from home with them that they hadn't had before. They'd had the luxury of having a house to themselves when their partner went off to work. And now they were trying to, work out of the same room. They had kids that they were trying to homeschool. So all of that, does affect people, and it affects how they work. So being very conscious of that. So we very much put forward, we've always had a EAP, but we really have continued to highlight that in weekly meetings. So we never used to have weekly meetings. We'd have maybe a monthly kind of all staff catch up, but we actually went to having a weekly all staff catch up. And that was being very transparent around where the company was at financially, our cash flow. I was very open about, how long we could ride this out if the worst happened and all our customers went away, which fortunately they didn't. But looking at those worst case scenarios and being very transparent with the team about that. And then being very conscious of their personal situations as well. So, and I think now, even as we, move forward in this kind of change, it will be a changed world. And I think it won't be an all or nothing. I think people will gradually start to go back to the office, but maybe not 5 days a week. And people will start to balance things a little bit more. But with that, then also still comes changes at home, and how are you going to, set up to do that going forward? Because what you might have been doing over COVID will be different once we start to come out of it as well. So I think you've just got to be, very conscious of your team, that they're human beings and that we're individuals, and we've all got very different scenarios and things going on at home. And that is going to affect output. It is going to affect how you work or when you can work. So I think leaders being very conscious of that, and making sure that you've got either tools or mechanisms in place that you can support them as well. So whether it's an EAP or, whether it's a channel that you get them to subscribe to, or, there's lots of different tools out there.
Yeah, there are, sometimes the tools can be a little bit overwhelming, but I think the key to it is finding the tools that work for you and your team. But also I agree that over communication, I think, is really important, and touching base and making sure that people, that you care for them and you're looking after them. So I love the fact that you are still focusing on the EAP as well, like that sort of aspect to support your people.
So we went to scale back the communication. So we went to, having once a week all staff meeting, and then having I brought in a new general manager who started with us just before COVID in January. So it was tough for her getting to know, one, a remote team and changing the way she worked, but then also in the middle of that. So she was having calls with them one-on-one, one to get to know them, but also as a over communication during COVID. We've scaled that back now to kind of 3 weekly. And we also work with developers. So on the one hand, developers are like, oh, it's great that, you know, you're paying us all this attention and you're over communicating with us. But when we scale it back, they're like, oh, thank God. Once a week is too much to do one-on-one. So that's what has remained is, and again, we moved the weekly all staff call to being a fortnightly one. And that's something that we had a lot of feedback that they wanted to continue to do. And I guess what's discussed at that meeting is changed slightly as, you know, as we start to come out of COVID, but we learned a lot from that in terms of the things they want to hear more about as an entire company. And the importance of that is, and we're only 25 people, so it's not like we're, you know, a couple of hundred people getting on an all company call. But it also gives them the opportunity to ask questions that often they feel their colleague wants to ask but won't ask. So that was quite interesting as well.
Yeah, I think it's good that I did pick up with working with you and knowing your style is everyone I think everyone has a voice within your organisation, and I think they feel really comfortable and find that you're really approachable to say, hey, yeah, can we pull this back or can we change things to give you feedback and things? And I think
they certainly give me feedback.
I think that's good that people feel really safe. So I know that because how long, when you founded SixPivot, how long have you had the company for now?
So this year, June, was 5 years. So yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell me, so that takes a lot of courage to go and start something that's your own. Tell me, what was it about you going, I'm going to do this? Like, I'm going to have the courage to start my own company and build a team, and tell me a little bit more about that.
I was actually talking about this on a podcast the other day as well. So I look back now, and so when I started, I had an investor and I had a business partner. And the investor was, and I was very fortunate. It was someone that I'd worked with previously. And when I said I wanted to start my own business, they said, we're in. And part of that was because the nature of what I do, the people that I employ are very expensive. So I wanted to make sure I could hand on my heart say, I've got enough financial runway to keep you employed for 12 months. You know, you are coming on board with a startup, but it was very important to me that I found a way to ensure that they had at least 12 months security. So that was the reason for taking the investor. And I also wanted full-time staff. There's lots of people ask me all the time why, but there's lots of reasons that I can go into as to why I prefer full-time people over using contractors, or like a lot of a lot of startups when they start with contractors and over time build them into full-time employees. But I wanted full-time staff to start with. So that was a costly exercise as well. And then working with my business partner, we went our separate ways probably 3 years in. And that was, it's like a breakup. So we went through that process as well. And at that same time, or around that same time, I also exited my investor. And the reason for that on both counts was that we just had a different vision over time. I was always very fixed on the way I wanted the company to be, how I wanted it to grow. And it's very values based. And, you know, Sonia, you did a session, I think year 2, as to finding why and really working with the team around what it was that, you know, made them do what they do and what was going to want them to continue doing what they did and continue with SixPivot. So that was always has been and always will be a very strong focus, is that we came from the same values base. And over time, investors and my business partner wanted to grow much more quickly than I did, which I felt was going to change the values base, change the why and change a lot of what we did. So I worked through with them and made the decision that what was really important to me, and it was about what I'd started the company to be in the first place, which was, you know, finding some amazingly talented people who were on the journey for the long run, and that they weren't just turning up to do a job every day, that they were passionate about what they did, that we wanted to make a difference, and we wanted to work with people we liked working with. So we didn't want to change that culture, or I didn't want to change that culture, and most of the people that came on the journey with me didn't either. So most of my team now are sort of 4 or 5 year tenure with us. So we haven't lost very many people along the way. And at the time of starting the business, it really was, I was unhappy in the job that I was doing. And you know, because it didn't fit my core value base. So I looked around and went, where do I want to go? Who's doing the sorts of things in the industry that I know that I want to work for? And to be honest, there really weren't very many companies that I went, you know, I really think they have the same values, that they really care about their customers first, that it's not all revenue and profit driven. So when I kind of looked around, I couldn't really find someone that I aligned with. So then I looked at, you know, myself and what I'd done over the years and went, well, ultimately I've been building other people's businesses, so I should just do it for myself. And that was one of the key drivers. I was also in a position that I could take the risk financially on a personal level. I had the, I guess, experience and the contacts in the industry. I was going into the same industry, so it wasn't like I was completely doing something different. So I felt that I'd, you know, built up that network and that people would support me, which they 100% did. But what I've learned since is I should have done it on my own, and I didn't. So just given with what, you know, and hindsight's a wonderful thing.
It is a wonderful thing, yes.
And look, I appreciate and am grateful every day for my business partner and my investor, because I would not have gone out and done and started the business without them. So they gave me the confidence and the courage to do it. Now looking back, and what I've learned over time is I had it all along. I just really didn't put myself out there and believe enough at that time in myself to do it on my own. So that's probably one of the biggest learnings. So I'm not a big risk taker, believe it or not. I take calculated risks. So, but now I do take, I guess, more stock and trust in what I can do. And so I'm much more open now to starting new things, even in whether it's in SixPivot or Cloud Ctrl or some of the other things that we're looking to do. And that's really the lesson that I've learned, is just trust in what I know. And fortunately, it's always worked out. So
it's so true, isn't it, around that whole trusting and believing in yourself, because you kind of, like, even this morning, I did a live a few weeks ago, and I said to someone, you know, reach out. Like, we're always here, all about, you know, our whole value set is around kindness and courage. I said, you know, we're all about kindness if we can help. And she reached out to me and she said, look, I just want half an hour of your time. And she said, I was really straight. And she met me this morning. I came in early to have coffee with her. And after half an hour, she went, oh my gosh, like, I just needed someone to say, you've got this. And I knew I had, but I just don't know why I didn't believe in it. And I said, it was always there. You kind of just needed someone to kind of believe. And I get the fact that you did kind of go out on your own with, you could call it that safety net of having the investor and the partner. But I think that's such key and valuable advice, that you have got, you know, you having that confidence, that inner belief is so important, you know. And the amount of times I've looked back, gosh, I've had my company now for 12 years. I've looked back and I've gone, the times when I didn't believe in myself, when I should have, I could have just said, you know what, I actually do have this, you know, why did I, you know, and I get and it's about being kind to yourself as well. But look, I mean, what you've achieved today, Faith, is you should be so proud of yourself. Like, you've achieved such an amazing companies, and your team are a testament to that. And I love the fact you mentioned, because at the moment we've just brought on someone new, and it's just so great when you meet people that go, we're not driven by the money, we're actually driven by what your values are. We're driven on that your mission and your vision is to do this, and we want to be part of that. It's not about, as soon as people start saying, oh, money, 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 I go, I don't think, if you're driven by that, you gotta.
And money is of course important. So when you say that, people go, so you don't really care whether you make any profit or not. Of course, and my team are very highly paid in the market as well. So it's not like they're getting half the salary for working here, and I build up their values. But it's a real cultural difference in a team if you all come from that value base and you will ultimately want the same thing. And when we look at there's been one or two people where we've got it wrong and it hasn't worked. When we really look back at why it hasn't worked and why they've left, it is that underlying values base, in that they've either been in it for themselves, or they've been trying to personally achieve something that has taken over from achieving for the team. Where when I look at the rest of the team and the value base, they're all very driven around, as much as they're exceptional individuals in the craft that they do on their own and individually in their own right, as a collective, they care more about the team's success than they do their own. And I think that comes from partly because they already are very skilled, and a lot of the teams have had, very successful careers in much bigger companies, and they've learnt probably the hard way, as I did as well, is that that's just not the fit for me. I'm not driven by the sales deadlines and the targets, even though I was a very successful salesperson for a long time. That's not what drives us. And so there is this underlying, if we do the right things, the money will come. And, and I still believe that even from a sales perspective. And when I was purely in a sales role, I was still very much the same. If I was, and you're very similar, Sonia, if you're doing the right thing by your customer or the people that you meet, it will come back around, and people appreciate the time and the extra that you do. That's not all about how much I'm paying you an hour.
Yeah. I think that's so important. I just wanted to let you know there's a few people commenting. Mohammed from Lebanon is saying, hope we're having good health and happy days. So thank you. Andy Lamb is watching, and he said,
Andy.
okay, well, he's saying it should always be about purpose. So that's great. Rosemary, who is a finalist in our awards, is being proud of our achievements and our work, at least for my generation. Does not come easily. It's really, really important. So it's good that people are really resonating with what you're saying. So actually recently I just had coffee with someone, and he said, I think the key to being in business is like being a tennis player. He said the best tennis players always just watch the ball. They don't look at the scoreboard, so they don't look at what the scores are. They just want to be the best. So they keep their eye on the ball. And I think that's really important around just always delivering your best and doing the right thing by others, I think is the key to being in business, because you obviously want to make an impact. And I know, and I'm keen to ask you, I know that you said, you mentioned your journey around trusting yourself is really important, but if you could go back in time, is there anything else you would say to your younger self? What advice that you would give to your younger self?
Well, if we went back a long time, when I was very young, I would have absolutely taken more risks. And I think I've always been somebody that's achieved, whether it's in business or in sport or different things. So I've always, I guess, been fortunate that whatever I kind of turned my hand to, I've been successful. But I've always had I don't know, this niggling of, are you really going to be able to do it? And yet it always works. And inherently, I do have this confidence that it'll all be okay, and that it will all work. And what's the worst that can happen? And so even when I started the business, it's like, well, what's the worst that can happen? Is I have to go and get a corporate job again on probably more money than what I started the business with. So terrible outcome. Yes, I think if you break it down more to what's really the worst scenario that you can find yourself in, and I came from a very adverse background, so I didn't come from a great family, and I was out of home at 15. So I've always had to be independent and put myself through uni and do all of those things. So I've always had the mindset that I can do whatever I need to do and that I'll always be successful at it. But I still have this, inherent, are you sure? Rather than just jumping off the cliff. So I think if I went back to my younger self, I'd jump off the cliff a lot sooner than what I have done in the past.
That is so great. I use that analogy in my book, jumping off the cliff. So it's important that just do it. So I've got a couple more. Andy's waving back, by the way. Sammy Herbert, who obviously is part of your team. She's the HR manager for SixPivot and Cloud Ctrl.
And community manager, Sammy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, she's a wonderful finalist. So she's written, if you do the right thing, the money will come. And Karen's written, it's not how good you are, it's how good you want to be. Yeah, that's so true. So leadership, obviously I'm super passionate about this space. So and I know you are. And so tell me, what does leadership mean to you? I mean, for you, like, how do you be the best version of yourself as a leader?
Look, this has probably changed a bit over time as well. So I used to play competitive netball, and I was super competitive. And I always thought, I had to be the best on the court. And then that extended over into, I guess, my work life as well. So when I was in sales roles, I had to be the best salesperson. And when I was younger, it was actually all about money, and that's how your targets were driven. And so I was very focused on hitting my targets, being the best, and I was super competitive with everybody around me. That changed over time when I started to, again, sort of, I guess, look more insightfully into what did I really want. So, some of those things were driven by, as I said, I was out of home at 15, so I always had to support myself. So some of that was driven by, I wanted the big car and the flashy house and this, that, and the other. And then I got those things, and I'm like, well, I'm not really, who's coming over to see them? It's like, what's really important at the end of the day? So that actually then started to change my whole mindset, the way the way I played on the court, basically, and that transferred over to leadership as well. So I became less competitive and less, I guess, that analogy with the tennis player of, yes, you need to be aware of other people around you, but concentrate on what you need to do, and then look what you can do for others. And so for me, leadership is, I won't ask someone to do something that I'm not prepared to do myself.
Right.
And I still surround myself with people now so where I thought I had to do everything and I had to be the best and I had to be the most competitive and I had to win everything, I now surround myself with people that are much, much better than me at lots of different things. And that's what makes us win. And so it is the team, and it's that culmination of skills that actually, ends up with the outcome that you get, and being less worried about what my competitors do. And for a long time, both in SixPivot and a couple of other organisations I've worked for, we spend a lot of time coaching, mentoring, and teaching our competitors. And people go, "You're crazy. Why? You're giving away your secret sauce. Why are you doing that?" And my team are the same. They do exactly the same thing. And it's because we inherently believe that we all, we can all make each other better. And just because I do something a certain way doesn't mean my competitor can replicate it. But, if they can, good on them. Like, I will always have something that's unique to what I do, and my team will have something unique to what they do. So we can tell you everything we do, but it doesn't mean that you can translate that into an action that's going to give you the same outcome that we do. So sharing, everything we do really doesn't bother us anymore. And that's been a real journey for me to change that competitive nature to being, I guess, a more collaborative, caring, kind nature to, how do I teach others? And you're always amazed. Like, I do a lot of mentoring as well, and I'm always amazed at just how incredible some people are, and they don't know it. And so having that person, that can help lift them up, I think is fantastic. And then they do the same to me. So I feed off that energy because they're, so excited. And then you get this kind of new lease of life about being excited. So for me, that's kind of, a long way of what leadership is about. It is about that collaborative nature, not being competitive, in a sense. It's how do you share the skills, and you'll all find your own way, I guess.
I love that. I love what you said. It is about, I'm a great believer what goes around comes around. And again, I agree. It's the amount of people that have even given us feedback and saying, Sonny, you're in leadership, you give away too much, you're doing that. I'm like, well, at the end of the day, like, I don't even look at what I don't like. Sometimes people say, do you look at what your competitors are doing? I go, no, because we're different. Like, we're completely different. And if I start to keep my eye off the ball and our ball and keep looking at what everyone else is doing, then, attention goes, energy flows. So, but it's around putting that energy, giving back, because no one can deliver like we do. No one can coach like we do. So if they're wanting to, if we're sharing stuff and they go, hey, do you mind if we use this tool or use, that model? I go for it. At the end of the day, it's about, aren't we collectively and collaborate? If we collaborate more, if we're all wanting to achieve the same thing around building more leaders, isn't it better that we do it together than in isolation? Because we can all make a difference, and there's plenty of work to go around. So I think that's what I've always loved about you and your ethos around leadership, is that you and SixPivot have always been about how you can help. And I mean, even when I reached out to you recently about helping me, you were like, oh my gosh, like, what can we do to, I was like, oh my gosh, because I knew you'd be the perfect company, because that's what you're about. Obviously you're about making money, but it's also around you actually want to help and serve, and that's leadership, around helping others be better and do better. So I love the fact that you do that. So we're actually going way over time. I knew that we would talk a lot longer than I thought. So much we would talk about. But tell me, what is next for what you're doing? What are your what's next for you?
So we will be launching, it was going to be end of this year, but it's probably going to be early next year, a third business, which is really still in the vein of what we do, but it's actually working with organisations. So some of them are, say, hospitals or governments or different organisations where they've created maybe an in-house application or an in-house product that needs to be, again, they want to share it with others, but that's not what they do. They're about being a hospital or being whatever they are. So the new company will be around how do we do joint IP to then actually start to commercialize and share those offerings out that have traditionally been sitting in government or those sorts of areas that can actually help similar organisations and also globally.
That's so how many more companies are you? You're amazing. I don't know. Do you sleep?
I'm very good. Yeah, I'm very surprisingly, I work less now in my own companies than I did when I worked for somebody else. So I have a very structured, trying to get that whole life. I don't like the life balance thing, but yeah, trying to balance things more.
Yeah,
but that's why I have great people, because I don't have to do everything.
You have great people. You have great people around you. So, and before you go, before I ask any final insights, if people would love to reach out to you, obviously via your website, but tell us a little bit more around how you can help others through what you do, like in terms of what SixPivot does and Cloud Control. So what do you do to really, like, obviously I've reached out to you for helping us at Leadership HQ around developing some stuff, but for others out there that would like to know more about what SixPivot and Cloud Control do, that you could really help them, tell them what you could do for them.
So from the SixPivot side, it's really whether you've got an existing software as a service product, or you want to build one, or you have an idea for something. So we work with, whether it's startups through to corporate government. Microsoft are one of our biggest customers, really around the ideation, and then through to actually programming and building whatever it is that you want. And you know, the challenge in software to that is that anything is possible. So often I always say my job's telling people what they don't want to hear. So it's really, you know, that rigor around, is this the right thing for you to be building? Is that where you should invest your money? And then if it is, you know, how do we help you build that and get it to market and all those good things? So that's the SixPivot side. Cloud Control is a cloud billing and management product for public cloud. So if you're working in an organisation, generally larger organisations, or your own software company, and your, you know, cloud consumption bill is huge every month, and you want to sort of control that, and you want more insights into either how you can better code for cloud, or what some of the billing mechanisms are around reducing your cloud spend. That's what Cloud Control does, and that's what we can help with, is the insights and how you can start to reduce your cloud bill regardless of what cloud you're actually using.
I love that. I love, hence why it's called Cloud Control. I love that. So, and any final insights for everyone that's listening? Because there's some really, Alan Marshall's actually given us some, he wants to meet us, which is great. He loves the tennis analogy. He said, you have to be on the court, not in the stand. So just stay positive and go for it with calculated risk. So yeah, there's some really great comments here. So any final insights to anyone that, and thanks to everyone that is commenting, like Karen and Alan and Rosemary and Sammy. So thanks, and Alan. So thank you so much for commenting. But is there any final insights you'd like to say to everyone that's watching today?
I think two things. With being a leader, it's be you, and be, you know, there's a lot said about being authentic, but I think at the end of the day, it's around being whoever you are and building your team. It doesn't have to be your company, but your team around what's true to you, and finding people that you won't always get along with, but that have that same core value base, whatever that is, for you, and that you'll then always have a successful team. Remember that people are humans first. And I think the other one, Sonia, that you always talk about is that, and it's something that I 100% drill into my team all the time, is you don't have to have a leadership title to be a leader. And people, you know, if you start to demonstrate good leadership qualities, you will naturally find yourself in leadership roles. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a manager title or whatever. And so I sort of instill in my team that in everything they do, and every customer we go into, they're considered a leader for the expertise that they're bringing, or, you know, what they're demonstrating to that company, and they need to, you know, take that quite purposefully. So that's probably one of my biggest, is it doesn't matter what role you have in a company, there is a way to let your, to be a leader and show and shine in that way.
I love that. I love that. No, thank you so much there. Great insights. Definitely, obviously, you know that I'm very passionate about leadership being an attitude and a mindset and a choice. Yep. So it's great to see that you really espouse that as well in your leadership. And I'm glad that it's very exciting that you're starting a new company. But do stay tuned, because very shortly I'm going to be sending you an email with lots of certificates for our leadership awards. So you're actually
can't wait.
The judge in our startup leader of the year. You have got a very tough gig. I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd want to be in your shoes because these the finalists are amazing. So, and I look forward to seeing you on the 4th of September as well. So I just wanted to say it's such an honour to be speaking with you today, because obviously the Leadership Channel is all about, speaking and with inspiring CEOs and founders and managing directors who really are dedicated to leadership and kindness and courage. And you are someone that absolutely espouses all of that times. So it's been such an honor speaking with you today, and thank you for being the incredible leader that you are, Faith. Thank you.
Thanks, Sonia. And you rock, Sonia.
You too. All right, you have a great day. And thanks everybody for listening. Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.